If you could change any choices you have ever made, would you? You can always make another choice and change the course of your success. Everyone has the potency to make inspired choices. Get ready to listen, share, and experience the creativity that is you. Now, here is the host of Inspired Choices radio show, Holographist coach, Christine McIver.
Well, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Whether you're listening live, you're listening in the replay, you're joining me in the chat room, or wherever you're listening from. We have over 50 locations you can listen live, and then, of course, 50 plus platforms for podcasting. I'm so glad that you are here. We are talking tonight about manifesting, becoming a conscious manifestor. And this is a conversation that I'm sure that you've danced around, maybe heard a little bit about, and I think it's still a conversation that really does require more focus. I think it's a conversation. Well, for me, it popped. You know, when I'm choosing my radio shows, I'm really looking at what's required, what needs to be spoken to, what would be fun to speak to, and what are people looking for support in. Where would they like to be inspired? Because, you know, we're all about inspiration here on the Inspired Choices radio show on the Inspired Choices Network. So, yes, I am your host, Christine McIver. I am a holographist coach. I work with individuals to really help them move forward into their dreams, their desires immediately. Not about projecting out into the future, into the someday, but into the now day. So if this is something that would really contribute to you, if you're curious, if you would just like to hang out and chat with me, I give everyone a complimentary 30-minute session to see if we are actually a match. You know, when you're working with a coach, you want to feel comfortable, you want to feel confident, and you want to be able to understand kind of where they're coming from in order to really help you bring down your barriers and step into your desires even more. So please reach out to me if you're interested. My email is Christine@inspiredchoices.ca. You can always catch me here on the network. Of course, on the Inspired Choices Network, you can find me under the host tab, or you can also check me out here on my website, inspiredchoices.ca. So, one of the things that I love to do is I love to work with individuals to move them into their desires, as I've said, whether that's something from improving a relationship. You know, I've worked with a lot of people in regards to intimate relationships and, interestingly enough, moving them beyond the current relationship that they're in or that they've just come from. I have a program called Divorce with Dignity. Now, that can be an intimate divorce or an intimate relationship that you're divorcing from. It can also be a relationship like a family member or an employer-employee relationship. Wherever you have been connected with someone, it's no longer fitting, and there's a lot of challenges to move through it or beyond it. You know, we oftentimes will end a relationship, but the relationship continues to impact us. There's oftentimes a great deal of residual emotions that stop us from moving beyond. And it's so important, I feel, that we are treating ourselves with dignity and kindness, that we are also looking at the past creation with the same. A lot of people will go into a relationship, they're very excited about it. You know, think about that job that you got the day before you actually started. We're so excited, and you're having celebrations with family, with friends, and then you start the job and you're eager to go, and maybe 6 months, maybe a few years down the line, you're regretting the choice of that job. But that job, in you moving into that, brought you to where you probably have another desire. And what if we didn't have to make our choices wrong, and we can actually complete a relationship and do it with kindness for ourselves so we could grow from it and beyond it. So that's what the one program that I have is all about. Another program I have is the pleasure of business, is actually having you enjoy and create your business from the space of pleasure, not from the space of obligation or survival. And so when we can start to have more pleasure with our business, we can start to actually have more pleasure in our lives. And this can change things on every level for us. So that's a program I really love to do. And both of these really come from the space of stepping into your greatest desire right now and operating from that space. So please do reach out if either of those, or you would just like to have a conversation with me to see if this is something I can support you with. I would love to hear from you. So here on my radio show, which I've been doing now for since 2011. So what is that? I think I'm moving into 9.5 years now in doing this show. I'm all about looking at what's stopping us and trying to really invite you into something new. And tonight we're going to be talking about become a conscious manifestor. So a lot of people, we're working on whatever we're working on, whether we have our own business or we're working for somebody else, and we're creating. Every single solitary person is in the space of creating every day. You're creating your life. You're creating your body. You're creating at work, whatever it is that you do, whether you are in sales or you are, a laborer, maybe in a factory, you're creating maybe a product. Some people, they're in the service business, so they're creating relationships. We're all in creation, continuously in creation. Even children are in creation. We human beings love to create. That's one of the things that, really lights a human being up. I think that this is one of the greatest reasons that we actually came into embodiment, is to be able to create. Creating is fun, and it challenges us, right? And it invites us into being more than we've ever been before. But here's the thing. We get sometimes into our life and we start to kind of go on autopilot. And a lot of people are in the process of just existing with their lives. They're not actually being a conscious creator. So let's just break this down. I really want to break down each and every one of these words, because I think as we know the full definition, it kind of gives us more insight into ourselves. So the first word, consciousness. Everybody's saying these words. And sometimes, I don't know about you, but sometimes I'm like, I don't want to hear this anymore. I'm sick of everybody throwing these words around, because people, they kind of hook on to, have you ever noticed they hook on to the new fab word, and everybody's saying it. And it's like, sometimes I look at people and I go, in my mind, this is what comes up for me, is they don't even know what they're saying. They're using this word without the full breadth and depth of the understanding of that word. So let's first of all talk about conscious. The definition of conscious is knowing, privy to. I love this. It's the sense of knowing or perceiving within oneself, sensible, inwardly, awareness. Isn't that awesome? It's the sense of knowing oneself. That is the true consciousness. Consciousness is about you. It's not about you knowing somebody else's life, or you knowing someone else's positive or negative. Some people say, I'm really conscious because I understand what's going on with everyone else. Well, that's all well and fine, but are you conscious? Are you inwardly aware of yourself? Is that going on? So let me repeat that. It's the sense of knowing or perceiving within oneself, sensible, inwardly awareness. Isn't that so cool? So where are you at with your consciousness? Would you say that you have this you perceive within yourself an inward sensible awareness. Sensible awareness. Now, isn't that very cool? How many times have we ever talked about sensibilities, right? A lot of people out there will be using consciousness as a superior tool against another. And I wonder how much we're actually using that against ourselves. You know, we're judging ourselves for the fact that maybe we're not conscious enough, or maybe we don't have the answers. Here's a really cool thing. Consciousness doesn't say you have to have the answers, or to be conscious, you have the answers. It's about perceiving your awareness. So what do you know about you? That's really what we would break it down to. What do you know about you? Do you understand who you are? Do you understand how you are built, how you operate? I was just speaking with my producer, Rhonda, before we came on the show, and we were actually talking about something that a number of our hosts have been referring to over the last few weeks, is body design, human body design. And it's very cool because as we step into looking at this, we start to learn more about ourselves. I don't know about you, but a lot of the times when I've had maybe even like an astrology reading or a numerology reading done, there's not a whole lot for me that's surprising. Oftentimes we want to know more, and yet when the information is brought forward, we can't deny it because there's somewhere within us we've always known that, right? Like I know for a fact that I have a short temper. I've known that for a very, very long time. And it's in knowing that information, having that information, and wanting to be kind to me, because if I go off with my short temper, I'm going to hurt someone likely around me, but that will in turn hurt myself. So I'm being very conscious in what are you allowing to take over, Christine? What are you allowing with this short temper to really stop your desires? Because with that built into me, it's not that things can't be changed, okay? But I don't know that that will ever go away. I'm not concerned about it. I stay aware of it, that that's something that can kind of snap for me. So oftentimes I will need to take a breath. I will need to step back from something and literally just breathe and come to my awareness about, okay, what's going on for me right now? You know, you are a spiritual being in a human body having a human experience. You are aware of what's going on around you with other people. And sometimes it really requires you to step back and examine what's going on within you and then make a choice and make a really conscious choice of what will work for you. So that kind of breaks down the piece about consciousness, is getting to know you and really having a sense of you and a sensible inward awareness of you. You know, you don't have to be all guru-y and, sit and meditate all day long. That's not what consciousness is about. It's about really going, okay, this is what goes on for me. I know that sometimes when this happens, this can be triggered within me. And it's just being kind to yourself and allowing yourself to move through and beyond what doesn't work for you, and also challenging yourself to becoming greater than you've ever been before. You know, it's not enough for us just to be aware. It's also about making another choice. And that leads into being that manifestor for yourself. So the definition of manifest is to spread, to show plainly, to discover, disclose, and betray, To display by action. Interesting definition, right? To reveal as in operation. I just think that's fascinating. That's just a really fascinating definition. And if you are conscious and you are a manifestor and you know you're a manifestor, what is it that you are actually discovering? And are you willing to be sensible with your discoveries? Are you willing to display by action what it is that you know and what it is that you desire? So we're going to head off to our first break. When we come back from the break, we're going to dive into more about what it is and how to become a more conscious manifestor, to really move beyond the everyday robotic life that we can all, and I would challenge all have, slip into. Because you know what? Consciousness is oftentimes not the easiest thing to stay with. It requires a great deal of presence. So we're going to just stop right there. Let's go to our break, and when we come back, we'll pick up about being present. So you're listening to myself, Christine McIver, the host of Inspired Choices radio show here on Inspired Choices Network, and I'll talk to you after this break.
Many of us make choices in our lives based on our past experiences or what others believe. What would our lives be like if we made our choices based on what we desire for our futures? When you join Inspired Choices radio show with holographist coach Christine McIver, you'll be provoked to look at what is true and what you know but may not choose that requires your attention. Christine does not hold back and brings all her expertise during each and every show. Are you ready to create the life and the living you truly desire? Listen for Inspired Choices radio show every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 7 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. Mountain, and 5 p.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
Are you a subject matter expert? Are you here to share your expertise with an audience waiting to hear from you in only the way you can deliver? Are you ready to have your voice amplified across the airwaves? Inspired Choices Network has a global radio platform streaming to millions of people across the world. Professionally produced and supported by an accomplished team every step of the way, you can broadcast from anywhere in the world, knowing your voice matters, and we ensure it is delivered with ease and efficiency. Eager to hear your message, the world awaits. Contact us today to become an Inspired Choices Network radio host. Email becomeahost@inspiredchoicesnetwork.com.
This is Inspired Choices radio show with holographist coach Christine McIver. To participate in the program, call in the U.S. 815-880-8255. Canada 613-800-8736, or Skype us at Inspired Choices Network. You can also make the choice to ask or comment by email by sending to Christine@inspiredchoices.ca. Now, back to the program.
Well, welcome back, everyone. Thank you so much for joining tonight. We are talking tonight about become a conscious manifestor, and we're having a very fun conversation in the chat room just about that very thing. So it's really, really interesting when we talk about the consciousness and manifestation. And before we went to break, I just started to step into talking about being present. What does it really mean to be present? Because this is a very important piece of being conscious and being a manifestor. So in order for someone to really be present, it takes a great deal of energy. Most of our thoughts, our words, and our actions are operating from an unconscious state. We have, for instance, science knows this, we have 60,000 thoughts a day. And more than 80% of those thoughts are the exact same thoughts we had yesterday. You see, a lot of what's going on in your mind is on automatic pilot. And that's a really good thing because it operates, what goes on in your mind has a great deal of impact on what is going on with your body. So, for instance, you do not need to tell your heart to beat. There is a program set up within your body to tell your heart to beat, all right? To tell your stomach to process the food, to tell your liver to stream out the toxins. There's all of these automatic programs that are going on within our body. You don't have to think your way to sleep. You don't have to think your way to wake up. Your body will do that. Now, sometimes we do have challenges sleeping. Sometimes we do have challenges waking up, yes. But you know that if you're tired, you're going to fall asleep. Your body will have that automatically go. You don't need to sit there and be very conscious and very present to have that happen. So the body gives us a great example of how we are operating in the unconsciousness a great deal of the time. Your thoughts a great deal of the time have repeated again and again and again. We talk about habits a great deal. Habits, initially, they will be something that you have to be very conscious, very present to in order to create that habit. But eventually, that habit will go on without you even having to consider it, right? I often give the example of brushing your teeth. When you first learn to brush your teeth, you're all over the place. You know, it might be going down your throat, or you might cut your gums, or, you might get very frustrated and say, this is terrible. I can't do this. And eventually you move into being very present. Okay, I can do this. I can do this. I can do this. And you're 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And you're being very, very present with that. And then, most adults today can brush their teeth and walk around. And, even I know people have conversations when they're brushing their teeth, or they can be doing a lot of different things simultaneously. Each and every one of us do a great deal of things simultaneously because we are operating in a habit that habit has moved into an unconscious state that we're doing it automatically. Have you ever driven your car and you were going to one location and you ended up at another one? And that other location where you ended up at, I would guess you've probably gone to that job at that location, or you used to work at that location, or somebody you maybe visited at location, or a favorite place where you would go, maybe to a store, right? It's those different types of habits, and we have them so ingrained into our consciousness that they are just on automatic pilot. Those are not bad things. So having these habits being in the unconscious state, they're not bad things. But when you are desiring to create your life forward and to create your life greater than it was yesterday, it requires you to be conscious. And what do you need to be in order to be conscious is you need to be present. You need to be very focused, and you need to be completely and totally aware of everything that's going on within you and all of your thoughts, your belief systems, your desires. Have you ever started a new job, and been exhausted by the end of the first day, or even for the first week? Most people will be very tired because what they're doing is they are building new neural pathways with the knowledge they're acquiring, and that requires a great deal of presence. So they are being very conscious. There is an inward awareness of what they're taking in, what they're having challenges with, that is going on. And that being present can be extremely, extremely exhausting to our body. It takes more energy with your body and with your brain when you are having to be present. If you've ever been in a state of emergency with someone, maybe a car accident, or someone is is, maybe having a heart attack, and you're there in that moment. You have to be so present and so on that you can assist in something very, very severe. That can have a great impact on you and your body. So consciousness is not easy. This is my first point I want to make about this, is it's not easy. Now, it can get better. It can get easier for you as you continue to practice this. But you've got to understand that a lot of the choices that you've probably made in your manifesting in the past, you've been doing it from, if not all, a good portion of your unconsciousness, your old habits, your old patterns. A lot of people will say, oh, I'm doing, I've said the words that my mother used to say, or I'm operating the way my father used to operate. I picked that up from them. Yes, you did, and you stored it in your neural pathways, and now you're operating from your neural pathways. I was speaking with a client the other day, and she actually referred, yes, I got that from my dad. And I challenged her a little bit, and I said, well, you may have gotten it from your dad, but you chose it, you've picked it up, and now you've chosen to continue to operate in that regard. So no longer can we point to someone else about that. We now have to take responsibility for what we're choosing to continue to play out in our lives, in our choices. We have to get conscious with the fact that we are making a choice in every single moment. And that, my friends, as you begin to own that you are making a choice in every moment in your life, that's being present. That is a great space to start. And that's being conscious of, okay, I've made these choices in the past. Those are the choices that I've made. I'd like to make a different choice. That requires you to really get present and really look at what it is that you would like to change. When you are choosing something, you are manifesting. You are a manifester. You have taken something to a different level now that you are completely desiring to have more of it. All right? Melissa had a really great question in the chat room earlier. And where is it? She said, when you are a conscious manifester, are you also conscious of when you manifest poop? So I don't think she means the physical poop in the body, although sometimes people aren't conscious when they're doing that. But when you are being a conscious manifester, I think you can, if you really want to be honest with yourself, I think you can acknowledge that, you know what, I just created crap. That takes something else. It does take consciousness and presence. It also takes vulnerability. So that's another aspect of being a conscious manifester, is the willingness to be vulnerable with yourself. You don't have to share any of this with anyone else if that's something that you're uncomfortable with. But at the very least, I want to challenge you that you need to be vulnerable with yourself. Be honest with yourself and say, you know what? I really screwed that up. I made that choice. I was being conscious when I made that choice, and it turned out like crap. Or I hurt someone. I need to own that if I'm going to change that. And that's where, when you get into that space of being vulnerable with yourself and owning where you really messed up, that's where you start to strengthen that muscle of being a conscious manifester. And my friends, that's when you can start to really propel forward into your life, propel forward into your desires. We're up to another break already. That goes really, really quickly. So, we have been breaking down a lot of the words and a lot of what's required. When we come back from break, I would love for anyone, if they're interested, they can call in. I'll take your questions. We can talk about what's going on with you, or you can join us in the chat room and we'll take some questions there. But we will be very conscious with what we're sharing tonight, and we are going to talk more about how you can move more into manifesting from that conscious space to have more of what you desire. You are listening to myself, Christine McIver, the host of Inspired Choices Radio Show here on the Inspired Choices Network. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Many of us make choices in our lives based on our past experiences or what others believe. What would our lives be like if we made our choices based on what we desire for our futures? When you join Inspired Choices radio show with holographist coach Christine McIver, you'll be provoked to look at what is true and what you know but may not choose that requires your attention. Christine does not hold back and brings all her expertise during each and every show. Are you ready to create the life and the living you truly desire? Listen for Inspired Choices radio show every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 7 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. Mountain, and 5 p.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
Are you ready to have pleasure with your business? Yes, I said pleasure with your business. The Pleasure of Business a la carte will surprise you with topics like meet yourself in the boardroom, money, services, and you. Expand your visibility. The pleasure of communication. The pleasure of Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. Christine McIver has so much pleasure with business and loves teaching all things business. Beginning a new business? Desiring to expand a current business? Or looking to resurrect a business that has been dormant? This program will get you fired up and bring more pleasure than you have ever imagined. Exhausted with your excuses for not creating a phenomenal business? Join now for all the pleasure with business. Pleasure of Business a la carte gives you total choice for what you desire and what your business requires. That's 24 weeks of different topics to choose from with weekly calls, audio and video recordings, and PDFs. This class will have you dive right in and use tools to create the business that has been speaking to you. Go to inspiredchoices.ca for full details or join the Facebook page Pleasure of Business a la carte. Now is the time for you and your business.
This is Inspired Choices Radio Show with holographist coach Christine McIver. To participate in the program, call in the U.S. 815-880-8255, Canada 613-800-8736, or Skype us at Inspired Choices Network. You can also make the choice to ask or comment by email by sending to Christine at inspiredchoices.ca. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back, everyone. All right, we are actually already into our third segment for the evening. Tonight we are talking about becoming a conscious manifestor, and we're actually just having a debate about the spelling of it, so it's very funny. So we're actually, Melissa had a really great question. She said, is it the presence that is exhausting or the adrenaline rush because of the possible danger? And I'm going to assume the possible danger of messing up is where you're coming from. I think that most people I don't think most people are actually in a very present conscious state of consciousness. I don't think that they are used to being very present and strengthening that muscle. So I think initially that's actually what is exhausting for them. And Melissa says for her, it's very exhilarating to operate from being present. I believe that is likely something that people can obtain, but I don't think that is initially something that we are taught to be. And especially look at schools when we were growing up in schools, and I think some of the things are changing now. But look at schools where we are, even the homework or the when we get in trouble at school and we have to write on the board, write I'm a bad girl, 100 times. Like how many of us are like, oh my God, right? And your writing gets worse and worse and worse because you're not being conscious. You're not being present. We are taught to be robotic in so many ways. But I do see that that's changing. I do see that is something that we're being challenged with, which is great. It's often oh my gosh, I can't even talk. It's awesome that we are being challenged in this way because we're moving more into a state of consciousness. Now, when you're also choosing to be present and choosing to be very conscious about what's going on around you and within you, you can pick up on so much more of what's going on with other people. And that can be very challenging. It can be very overwhelming. Oftentimes, I know when I started in this body of work, over 15 years ago, as I was being very present and starting to strengthen that muscle, I would pick up on a great deal of sadness. I would pick up on a great deal of emotions that were overwhelming for me. And it took quite a bit of time working with coaches and wonderful friends to really start to recognize that all of that was not mine, that I was really, because of my willingness to be conscious and present, that I was starting to pick up on what was going on with a lot of people around me. So what does that have to do with the conversation tonight? As a conscious manifestor, and let's just talk about this from the state of being in your own business, because that's what I love to talk about. If you are being a conscious manifestor or desiring to manifest more and more, a lot of times you can be, picking up on what other people are creating. So how many times have you seen groups of people that are nearly mirroring what each other are doing? They are picking up on, what's kind of hot or what's kind of in right now and creating it maybe with their own little version, but very similar to those around them. Now, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but what I would challenge someone on is that really what is the greatest desire of yours? Is that really something that would be the greatest contribution for you? And I think it's something that we need to continually look at, and we need to continually challenge ourselves with, because we are so influenced by everything around us. We are connected globally. We can speak to people from all over the world. We're seeing hundreds of thousands of images and content daily if we choose to be online. And so it is something that we can easily pick up from other people. And this is where being a conscious manifestor is really important. It's really checking in with you. It's checking in with what it matters to you, what will really bring you inward joy. If you are looking to make a buck and you're looking to survive, you will often, and this is what's taught in business schools, this is what's taught in coaching, is to look at what other people are doing and try to fit into the market so you will be desired, so you will be chosen. Oftentimes people will talk about, getting your niche market. That word just about sends me over the top. I really have an aversion to the word niche market because to me, a niche market is something that's very narrow and something that, a lot of people, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but what I have seen is a lot of people have been told they need to get a niche market, and then they try to work that market for love or money. They're trying to survive, and they're cutting off the possibility of where they might expand and grow and evolve into. So we're taught to do that. We're often taught to find our ideal client. And so what we're doing is, as manifestors, is instead of really looking at that inwardly awareness of what's going on for us and being conscious to it, we're looking outside of ourselves and we're trying to fit into a stereotype. We're trying to fit into a puzzle piece of what the market will actually choose in our creation. And that, my friends, first of all, it's an extremely narrow way to operate. Because if there is something, If you have a capacity, if you have an ability, if you have some creation within you that hasn't come forth yet, if you are copying or repeating what other people are doing with just a little difference, how will you ever discover that which is within you that is desiring to come forth? You see, I do believe that each and every one of us are unique. I believe that as we choose to be more conscious and be more present each and every day, that we will discover and uncover more and more and more of our abilities. It's funny, today I was kind of going through some old documents and some old things online, and I came across, well, I actually updated my computer. I have a Mac, and the Macs have brought in, they're really making the Apple Podcast something that's prominent on your computer as a Mac. And so I went on there and I was looking at the podcasts that I have favored in my iTunes account, in my Apple Podcasts. And some of these programs, some of these radio shows that I had created when I first started back in 2011 are on my computer. I wasn't even aware or I wasn't very conscious to the fact that I had some of these old ones on my computer. So that was fun to discover. And so I started to listen to one of my old podcasts, and I was kind of giggling as I listened to myself trip over my words and just some of the words that I was using, the information. And, for me, it was like, well, that was me in the beginning. And here I am, 10 and a half years later doing my radio show. And I know that I have evolved. I know I'm a stronger speaker today. I know that I have more capacity today on the radio than I've ever had before. I know when I first started on the radio, I would write out exactly what I wanted to say. And today, that's not something that I do a great deal of. I really try to be present. And this is the one time for sure every week where I challenge myself to strengthen my muscle of presence and consciousness and allow what desires to come through. And that in and of itself is my way of growing and strengthening. And so as someone who is conscious and present, you are going to uncover and allow to come forth more and more of your capacities. You're going to allow yourself to let these desires to come forward. I was speaking to my daughter the other day, and she's been going through some challenges, and she had said something to the fact of, things aren't fair, and it was like her new desires weren't being met. And it wasn't the time to say it, but I've said often to other people is our desires will continue to grow. And if we come from the space of frustration with those desires not being present immediately, we're going to live a life filled with a great deal of frustration. But as you allow yourself to let those desires come to the surface, what is also going to come to the surface is something that is going to match the creation of those desires. And I think that that's a really important piece for all of us to understand, that while, yes, you can be a conscious manifestor and you can become present with all that you are choosing, having desires, allowing those desires to come to the surface, to really come up like beautiful sweet cream, those desires will also, with them, will come the ability for you to create, for you to manifest them into this present moment and time. So my question to you, my friends, is, are you willing to strengthen that muscle of presence? Are you willing to allow your desires to come forward? Many, many, many people, and I have been there as well, have struggled and are struggling right now at this time. I've spoken to many people that are having some challenges with what's going on in their world. But as you let your desires come forth, and as you nurture your desires and you be present with them, having your own back means showing up each day and being present with what have I chosen, and acknowledge, okay, this is what I have created in the past. Don't beat yourself up. Don't bring yourself down and say, I wasn't good enough or I didn't do well enough. Allow yourself to acknowledge this is what I created and this is the bounty that came forth from that. Now, from this new state of being, I choose to create more of my desires, and I choose to know I have the capacity, and I came forth into this body, into this time and space to do just that. So being a conscious manifestor is a big, big piece of being a conscious manifestor is learning to be kind to you, learning to allow yourself to evolve. Again, most of what we choose is from that state of unconsciousness. Will you give yourself the kindness for anything you have ever created, but challenge yourself to create greater, and even if it's just 1% more from the state of presence and inwardly consciousness. I'm going to let you sit with that while we take our last break of the show. You're listening to myself, Christine McIver, here on the Inspired Choices Network. And when we get back, we'll continue this conversation. Stay tuned, everyone.
Many of us make choices in our lives based on our past experiences or what others believe. What would our lives be like if we made our choices based on what we desire for our futures? When you join Inspired Choices Radio Show with holographist coach Christine McIver, you'll be provoked to look at what is true and what you know but may not choose that requires your attention. Christine does not hold back and brings all her expertise during each and every show. Are you ready to create the life and the living you truly desire? Listen for Inspired Choices Radio Show every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 7 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. Mountain, and 5 p.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. This is Inspired Choices Radio Show with holographist coach Christine McIver. To participate in the program, call in the U.S. 815-880-8255, Canada 613-800-8736, or Skype us at Inspired Choices Network. You can also make the choice to ask or comment by email by sending to Christine at inspiredchoices.ca. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. We're talking about consciousness and manifesting. So what is it that you desire to manifest that has not yet come into your reality? What is that is really frustrating you, that's stopping you from having more joy in your life? Are you willing to get really present with that creation? Are you willing to get really present with yourself and look to see what it is that you have chosen that stopped you, slowed you down, or maybe something that's actually creating some fear or paralyzation within you to not choose it? A lot of people that I know who have created a great deal in their life and felt like they failed or that they've had a lot of quote-unquote negative crap in their lives, they start to dream a little more cautiously. They start to manifest from a place of it being safe. They're afraid of choosing big, of really stepping in even greater than they ever have before, because It was painful. The fall from their dream was painful. Is it possible that the person you are today is more armed with knowledge of who you are, more armed with capacities of being aware of when you're going, maybe sideways with something? Are you more willing to be vulnerable with yourself today than you were when you started any of those past creations? If you're willing to acknowledge that you are not the same person with the same capacities, the same knowledge, the same consciousness that you were a year ago, 5 years ago, 20 years ago, if you're willing to be kind to yourself and really look yourself in the mirror and say, you have come a long way. You have moved through a great many things. You are more knowledgeable about who you are today than you ever were. You will always grow forward. You can't help to grow forward if you're always willing to be conscious, to stay present with yourself. In my past, if you've listened to my shows in the past, you will have heard that I've been married previously. And I beat myself up for a very long time because the two marriages that I stepped into, and my old self would say, shit hit the fan and they blew up all over the place. If I'd have stayed with that way of thinking and I'd have continued to ridicule myself, I would not today be in a relationship that is joyful, that is kind, that is moving me forward. You see, when you're willing to acknowledge all of you, that includes the amazingness that you did choose. And, we've only got a couple of minutes left in the show, but if there is something that is pulling on you and you would love to really move beyond it so you can create forward, maybe in the same direction, maybe in the same wheelhouse, I'd love to have a conversation with you. You can email me, Christine, at inspiredchoices.ca. We will have a 30-minute conversation that will be completely confidential, and we'll look at what you really are desiring and where you've decided you can't possibly move forward into. When you are willing to look at everything, you, my friends, are in the driver's seat. That's when you become the conscious manifestor. Remember, you do not have to manifest the way others are in order to be successful. You have your own makeup in your DNA and in your creations. You have something no one else has. But you got to keep with it. You got to stay present with it to allow it to come forward, to allow it to contribute to you. Next week, I'm going to have a fabulous guest on. I actually met this young man in a chapter store one day, and he was so strong in asking if I would be interested in buying his book that I couldn't resist. I had to stop and meet him. His name is, and I hope I say this correctly, is Yahya Barua, and he has written a beautiful book. And the book is called Struggles of a Dreamer. It's going to be a fabulous conversation. I would love for you to join us. And if there's a conversation or there's a topic that you would love to have more insight into, please let me know. And no matter where you are with any of what I shared tonight, I want you to remember this one very important thing. You can always make another choice.
Thank you for choosing to listen to Inspired Choices Radio Show. Christine McIver will return next Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 7 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. Mountain, and 5 p.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. We hope you'll join us. Until then, be willing to choose what you really desire. This is your life, making the choices that bring you all that you